The new Doctor Who collection box set of season 25 features brand new special editions on all 4 of its stories. These new edits restore deleted scenes, add new special effects, and have an immersive 5.1 surround sound edit. Today, I'm going to be ranking each and every special edition from this box set. I'll be talking about each episode at length, what I liked and what I didn't, and I'll be ranking them in order from my absolute favourite to my least favourite. The Doctor and Ace arrive at Terra Alpha, on a world where sadness is illegal. Can they overthrow the oppressive Helen A, or will they end up on the Candyman's menu? This story is easily one of my favourite Doctor Who adventures of all time. Easily top 10, possibly even higher. The Happiness Patrol to me just works. It's the perfect blend of everything I love in a Doctor Who story. It's a little bit camp with heightened performances, which still come from a place of truth. The actors are still taking the text really seriously. The story is rich in its politics, it has so much to say. It's not afraid to dip into horror and then comedy in the next moment. It's hard to pick the standout in the story because there are so many. But it's hard for it not to be Helen A, the dictator of this colony. Helen A's obsession with making everyone happy is so deliciously camp, but at its core, so evil and kind of sad. A woman who rejects love, rejects anything that could possibly cause unhappiness. The Doctor tells her that you can't have happiness without sadness. They are two sides of the same coin. An analogy that she rejects, but a lesson that she learns at the final moment, when she sees the one thing she truly loves die. It is a moment that is so powerful. The first time I watched it, I actually teared up. I wasn't bawling, don't get me wrong. It was more like a singular tear. It is possibly one of my favourite resolutions to a villain's arc in Doctor Who's history. It's so succinct. The Doctor's speech isn't overdone, it doesn't go on forever, and Helen's life falls apart within moments. Throughout the story, her performance is so electric, the sickly smile and the joy of watching all of the deaths. The Thatcher parallel is clear as day, even having a snivelling husband beside her. Sylvester as the Doctor is on fine form. His disgust for weaponry returns from the previous episode. One of the most famous scenes from this story is where he confronts 2 snipers. He forces one to point the gun right at his face, begging him to pull the trigger, but he can't. Not when it's so close. Not when he can look them in the eye. It feels even more relevant today when they're now using drone strikes. It makes killing even more easy, so impersonal. It feels like a video game. It doesn't even feel real. Ace is back in fine form in this episode as well. As soon as she arrives, she notices the tacky forced happiness in the decor and instantly rebels against it. She's a rebel in every sense. From wanting to join the anti-fascist killjoys, yelling "up the killjoys," to arguing with the Happiness Patrol in the waiting zone. The waiting zone is not a prison, of course. Terribly unhappy places, prisons. Everything is about appearing happy at any cost, even though every single part of the society is rotten to the core. Daisy Kay is so well cast. She smiles her way through every interaction. She delights in killing. It brings her so much joy. The story is so anti-authority in every way, from the police to the governments, up the killjoys. The Candyman is the epitome of keeping up happy appearances. A man constructed from candy, sickly sweet on the outside and disgustingly evil on the inside. Before I watched this story, I was told by a fan how ridiculous the costume was, and I think that person was an idiot. The candy is dripping and sticky and gross. The hypnotizing eyes and metallic screeching voice. The design is perfect. It's horrible and disgusting, and has this feeling of just being wrong. Candyman's associate, Gilbert M, is such a creepy and mysterious character, talking about how he created Candyman in his kitchen, just his body, not his mind. Like Frankenstein, or better yet, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Their relationship is almost as if they're lovers. When Gilbert M comes into the kitchen, Candyman says, "What time do you call this?" Like an old married couple. It's hilarious. The deaths in this story are just horrific, being drowned to death in strawberry fondant, and the celebration around it is just sickening. The whole story balances its horror with comedy, which is the perfect Doctor Who formula, matching horrific deaths, a nightmare dictatorship, with funny silly lines. The Candyman can't stop making terrible puns and jokes, threatening to hit Ace by yelling, "Feel the back of my candy hand." Or something as simple as just answering the phone and going, "Candyman." It's just so funny, yet so horrifying at the same time. He is such a great villain, one that I would love to see return, but unfortunately, the production team got in trouble with Bertie Bassett, since the design looks pretty similar to their mascot, which I think is a fair comparison. It reminds me of that meme of I drew a dark, fucked up version of the hamburger helper mascot. So silly. The new special edition adds so much to this story. The original story was only 3 episodes, and each episode has been beefed out significantly, allowing the story to really breathe. It doesn't slow the pace at all, and just gives the viewer more time to exist in the rich world that Graham Curry had written. They've added countless new special effects shots, expanding the studio-based city with CGI backdrops. Most of these are really well executed and make the city feel massive. These new effects could sometimes be distracting, such as constructing brand new 3D sets to host Helen A's broadcast, but I really enjoyed how they looked. I think on a second viewing, I wouldn't be as distracted, because it just looks incredible. And the little comical edits making Helen A's teeth sparkle just made me cackle. It's brilliant. They've gone for a real 1980s Blade Runner neon sign effect for the show, which I'm not entirely sure matches the original design prompt. The original sets are very much inspired by Art Deco, but I think the combination of the two styles works well. Adding new liquid effects into the pipes adds so much production value and really amplifies the scenes where it's used. Adding a shot of the factory exploding just adds something so visual to something that would have just been an exposition scene. The escape shuttle is beautiful. Seeing the planet from space is just wow. The team have done an amazing job at tripling the production value of the story, and the edit is brilliant. A lot of the new CGI elements are in much higher quality than the studio footage, which most of the time it's not an issue. But at points when they've stitched the studio footage with CGI in the same shot, the video quality can be really distracting. I think if they just added a little bit of a blur effect or something, it would have stitched the shot together better. Overall, I think for many people, this will be seen as the definitive version of the Happiness Patrol, and I can totally see why. For me, I will be choosing this one in the future. This is the edit I was most excited about when this set was announced, and it didn't disappoint. The Doctor has set a trap for the Daleks, one where he has to return to Coal Hill School, where his journey in time and space begun. This story, I think, is the first 7th Doctor story I ever saw, and I instantly fell in love with his Doctor. And I fell even more in love with Ace, and I thought she was the coolest character in Doctor Who. Watch out, Nissa. You can tell the production team are trying to relaunch the show to a new audience. The tone of the show is drastically different to last season's premiere, Time in the Rani. There is a huge emphasis on explosions and shattering glass and action sequences. It's so much more action-packed, but not afraid to hit more serious topics. The story itself is about racism, from the Daleks fighting each other due to racial purity, to the racist signs outside the lodging house. It's explicit in its themes in a way that feels fresh and bold to what the show had done in the past. Before it was mainly done in allegories, and now it's directly in your face, and I think that's really great. The Doctor's schemes begin in this story, manipulating the Daleks to take the hand of Omega. He's so enigmatic. When discussing a pregnancy, he says it'll be twins. He refuses to share his plan with anyone, only giving crumbs to Ace and the other characters. He's seeing the universe on a wider scale. Every great decision creates ripples. An extended scene has the Doctor pay for tea with a coin from 1991, and he gives a knowing look. It's almost in your face how enigmatic he is. Referring to himself as the protector of Gallifrey and other titles is just a precursor to how the Doctor would be written in the new series. It's interesting to see how the far more than just an ordinary Time Lord storyline has finally played out under Chris Chibnall, and how controversial it was. My 2 cents is that I think the Doctor being mysterious in this story works because it's not shown. Once we have the answers, it's actually not that interesting, but I can understand why keeping it a mystery and not giving answers is probably the better approach. The story heavily references the first ever story, An Unearthly Child, which is appropriate since the story was in its 25th anniversary year. Although this isn't the 25th anniversary special, that was Silver Nemesis. This story, to myself and other fans, felt the more appropriate anniversary adventure. There are also many references to the Pertwee era, with the early incarnation of Unit, a shout out to the Brigadier and Spiridon. It's clear what the writer's favourite eras are. My memories of this story was that the original visual effects are really good, especially for the time and budget, so I wasn't expecting a massive overhaul when it came to this special edition. And that seems to be the approach. All the new effects seem to be heavily inspired by the originals and are just a polish. Effects where they struggled originally, such as the floating hand of Omega, is improved upon massively. The new Dalek ray gun effects are really great and exciting. The Doctor's weapon against the Daleks look 1,000,000 times better than the original effect, but still has its kooky look to it. This story revisits the junkyard that was seen in An Unearthly Child, and when they tried to recreate the gate with the words "I am Foreman" on it, they accidentally spelt Foreman wrong and they left out the E. But in this special edition, they've managed to fix it completely, and it's so well done that you wouldn't even notice it unless you were looking for it. The special weapons Dalek feels even more powerful with an added CGI glow effect around its weapon, and when it's matched with the practical explosions, makes it feel like a real threat. For many shots, they've replaced the prop Daleks with CGI Daleks. Most of the time, it's pretty seamless, and you wouldn't even notice unless you're looking for it. But on some shots, it stands out, like on the Dalek mothership. But moments like the Dalek hovering up the stairs look so smooth and beautiful. The lightning effect on the baseball bat is still a bit too comic book for my taste, but it's true to the original, so I can't critique it too harshly. One of the most standout effects is where they lower a life-size model spaceship down into the school courtyard. It's such an incredible shot that stands up to this day. The Daleks exiting the ship has been sped up for the cliffhanger to episode 3, and I understand why they made that choice, because they move out so slowly. But it does feel a bit comical. You can always tell when footage is sped up. I feel like if I was in the editor's shoes, I probably would have made the same editorial choice. The new 5.1 surround sound edit is incredible. Explosions feel massive, and the opening radio signals are so immersive. It makes the story feel a lot more expensive. Obviously, the restoration team can only improve so much on standard definition video, but they can beef up the audio. One moment that was cut from the special edition is a scene where Ace turns the TV on and it announces a new science fiction television show and cuts off before saying Doctor Who. I'm not entirely sure why this cut was made, maybe to emphasize seeing the racist sign and holding on to that moment instead of leaving the scene on a joke. I'm not sure. The story reminds me almost of The Power of the Daleks in the way that it attempts to relaunch the show, bringing back an iconic villain, making them a tangible threat again. The Doctor acting more mysterious and otherworldly. A story filled with strong and interesting side characters with a lot of world building. I think it succeeds and completely changes how the show is made from here onwards. When the Doctor encounters the last Dalek and causes it to kill itself, cements this bold new direction the show would head in. The Doctor is not the man you once knew. He's dangerous, but still a goofy little guy when he wants to be. The mystery of the Doctor has returned. Ultimately, I really enjoyed this new edition, and if you're looking for a polished version of an already incredible story, this does the job well. What does Lady Pinafore, the Cybermen, and neo-Nazis have in common? Nemesis, a statue made of living metal, capable of great power. For this box set, there are, I think, at least 4 versions of this story. You can watch the original broadcast, you can watch a VHS extended edit, and you can watch a brand new version of the special edition, and then there is a 55-minute omnibus cut down. For this ranking, I've chosen the cut down edit to talk about, purely because I have a lot more thoughts about it. First of all, I've never really been a big fan of Silver Nemesis. It is an overly complicated plot that emphasizes telling and not showing, with just too many characters. This new edit attempts to ratify that and simplify the story as much as possible. The story now flies at a lightning pace, but manages to make sense of the chaos of the original, although at times it does feel rushed. It makes you question, is this the new edit, or is the original production just this muddled? A question I can't possibly answer. The story is filled with exposition and backstory, enough to fill endless TARDIS wiki entries. The writer attempts to keep it fresh by travelling to different time periods and locations to infodump. We're in the 1980s and we infodump. We're in the 1800s, we infodump. Repeat, repeat. It feels more new series-like in a way, where we're constantly moving and asking questions. I feel like this new edit is more cohesive in its storytelling, but it's still quite a hefty lore-telling exercise, which isn't the most exciting storytelling for me. The story is asking who the Doctor really is. What did they do all those years before Todder's Lane? The question of who is the Doctor is mysterious one moment and then comical the next. The Doctor looking in fear as Lady Penafort says she knows who he truly is. Then, we end on a flute rendition of the Doctor Who theme with Ace asking, "Who are you?" and Silver winking at the camera. It's mysterious one second, and then comical the next. Yet again, this era is predicting what the new series will pick up on. From large questions of the Doctor's past, like the name of the Doctor, and the timeless child, to smaller references like an arrow in the TARDIS door, and the Doctor wearing a fez and holding a mop. And for a story that isn't overly loved by fandom, it seems that it has been mined for new entertainment. And this edit seems to be another variation of that. The editor sees that there is good bones in this story and many great elements, but it doesn't exactly work all together in the broadcast version. I think with this new special edition, they've done the best they could with what was shot. And what was shot, most of the time, is brilliant. There are some amazing action sequences in the story, especially with Ace versus the Cybermen in the air hangar. Ace using a slingshot with a gold coin at the Cybermen and eviscerating them is so sick. She's so brave and never backs down from a fight. She enjoys it. And I cannot believe they managed to convince those people to be that high up in that gantry. It is so high. Ace gets another chance at action when she blows up the cyber ship with her Nitro 9. But she isn't a ruthless killer. When she sees two cyber-controlled humans being executed by the Cybermen because of her actions, she feels horrible. The Doctor tells her that they were already dead, but she still feels guilty. Ace has multitudes. She's more than just an explosion's gung-ho companion. She cares. Ace hates being perceived as a coward, and the Doctor is picking up on that. When he says she could always go back to the TARDIS, it fires her up to get into action. The Doctor is already manipulating her and seeing her weaknesses, something that he plays more into in season 26. This story is so foundational for what's to come. It's unfortunate that it's a bit muddled in the script. The new Cybermen suits are great, now a shining silver. Perhaps a bit on the nose for the story, but I think they do look great. Unfortunately, their gloves look a bit too big and look a bit off, but apart from that, they're fine. The new CGI in this story is used sporadically, and not to the extent that Happiness Patrol did, which I think was the right choice. The new model replacements for the Cyberman ship is brilliant, and is much more effective than the original. Everything looks really clean and isn't distracting. It fits perfectly within the story and feels like a polish, similar to the Remembrance CGI. One exciting new addition is adding Cybermats into the story. It makes so much sense, and the design is perfect. They really fit in with the 80s Cyberman design, and the inclusion feels seamless. I think if you had never seen this story before, you wouldn't have even guessed that this was new footage. It's just so well done. When the cyber ships are eventually destroyed, they look so good. The team did an amazing job. It really makes me wish that all the collection sets got new CGI like this for every single story. Ultimately, I feel like this is the best I've ever understood this story, so that's an achievement within itself. If someone could make an edit where Ghostlight makes sense, that would be incredible. The Doctor and Ace attend the Psychic Circus, a place filled with daring acts and funny clowns, but it hides a dark secret. I remember really, really loving the story when I first saw it, and I haven't seen it in years. Oddly, I feel this is a story I've maybe seen once or twice before, whereas a lot of classic Doctor Who I've seen many, many, many times. But this one I always just thought, oh, I liked it, but I don't really need to rewatch it. And when I watched it this time, I was kind of surprised that I didn't enjoy it as much. In The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, Ace doesn't really get to do that much thematically compared to other stories of the season. Her weakness of being interpreted as a coward returns again, and it plays exactly the same as it did in previous stories, where Ace is given a choice to go back to the TARDIS and she says no. It's the same scene yet again. But this time, it's about her fear of clowns, and it's something that's not really explored too deeply, apart from her general dislike of them. It definitely isn't a story about overcoming fears either, because her fears are very much justified throughout the story. One of the most exciting moments is when Ace is locked in a storage room and the robotic clowns come to life. It's something that stuck with me from the first time I watched it. The robot clowns' performances are so well done. Usually you can tell if an actor is slightly moving if they're trying to stand still, but these performers don't even seem to breathe. So when they come to life, it's really effective. Which robots are alive, which ones aren't. It's really great stuff. The story, in its title and thematically, is about how the show isn't as well received as it once was. From WizKids saying, although I never got to see the early days, I know it's not as good as it used to be, to the gods of Ragnarok, representing the viewing audience, wanting something bigger and better and being bored. After Trial of a Time Lord, another story that is winking and nudging at telling off the critics, it can come across as a bit, desperate. It feels like the writers are too involved with what their viewing public is saying, rather than just focusing on just telling a good story. I really think that the story should be able to speak for itself, rather than, actually, you're stupid for not liking what we're putting out. Maybe that's an unfair take from me. I don't think that is what their intention was when writing the story. I think it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, and I laughed at WizKid's line about it not being as good as it used to be. The Gods of Ragnarok's slow reveal is brilliant, and you just think they're this weird family, and over the 4 episodes, you slowly begin to see them in their true form. I think it's really well done. Once the Doctor finally confronts the Gods of Ragnarok, when he goes to their universe or other dimension, I'm not really sure, Sylvester's performance is so varied. It's great that the production team utilised his skills in clownery or magic tricks or whatever you want to call it. I think it's such a smart decision. Sylvester's comedy adds so much to his incarnation of the Doctor. He does his best to balance the comedy with the darkness in this scene, but I'm not entirely sure he succeeded. The side characters in the story are so good, from the creepy chief clown and his posse of robotic clowns, to Captain Cook, the evil colonialist dog with his captive mags. Captain Cook shares his name with the real-life colonizer, Captain James Cook. Unlike the Doctor, Captain Cook, the real-life version and the fictional version, want to own the world. They want to conquer it rather than explore it. And I think having them two side by side is very clear that the Doctor is there to do good, whereas Captain Cook is to do evil. The character of WizKid is really there to represent a certain type of Doctor Who fan, the ones who think that the show was better back in the day and now it's terrible. And it's very clear that this is what the show is trying to do in this story. And look, I totally get it. Doctor Who fans, including me, are really annoying, but I still have a bit of a problem with writers, showrunners, producers really feeling really antagonistic towards their audience enough to put them within the scripts. I totally understand getting annoyed at Twitter and those type of crazy Doctor Who fans, I totally get it. But once it's a part of the fabric of the show, it feels like you're really bothered by them. And I think as a creative, you need to learn how to accept criticism and block out the ones that are really toxic and just not acknowledge them. I don't know. I think it's a really complicated conversation to have, and I'm not fully sure about how I feel about it. But ultimately, I'm not upset by WizKid. And he looks very much like I did when I was younger as well, so there's that. So maybe I was feeling a certain type of way when I was watching that episode, I don't know. And you know, I feel awful. I really didn't enjoy the story this time around, which was a big disappointment, because I used to really love it. It's interesting how time can change how you feel about a story. I really hope this review isn't coming out too negative because there is so much great about the story. The set design and the locations are just brilliant. The serial was nearly cancelled due to the studios having asbestos, but thankfully they managed to film the story within a tent. It's a godsend that the story happened to be set in a circus tent, so it works really, really well. You have to admire the team for pulling this together. I can imagine it was endless sleepless nights trying to organise it. The main circus arena is brilliant and feels so real. The hallways and ticket room isn't the most impressive sets, but with the limitations they've done a great job with it. The model tent mixed with the location footage is one of the best executed effect shots in Doctor Who's history. On first watch, I thought it was real. I was like, how did they afford that? The graffiti on the van is so brilliant and so interesting to look at. The costumes are so bright and colourful. The makeup on Mags is crazy good when she goes into full werewolf mode. The destruction sequences at the end are so exciting, and the shot of Sylvester walking away from the explosion is iconic for a reason, because it's so good. We end with Ace asking the Doctor, "It was your show all along, wasn't it?" The Doctor is his most enigmatic he has been in years. A master manipulator. He's far more than just an ordinary Time Lord. Doctor Who is once again the greatest show in the galaxy. For the special edition, only episodes 1 and 3 have been extended, and all 4 episodes have new CGI. Personally, I don't think the story was benefited with this extra runtime. I felt like it slowed down the whole story significantly. I think with the Happiness Patrol being only 3 episodes, justified having that longer runtime, but with the greatest show in the galaxy being 4 episodes, I think it filled its runtime correctly on the first go. The new CGI is limited since the original production's VFX is so stellar, but most of the new additions are welcomed. The new TARDIS shot floating in space is great. The vortex/gateway thing looks great as well. The Doctor entering through the pathway is a fun and experimental way of showing it. The robot shooting its laser effects are really good, but the sparks they've added aren't selling it for me. I appreciate the attempt though, and it's something I would have tried as well, but I probably would have cut it out. The new 5.1 surround sound is brilliant. The opening titles have never sounded better. Ultimately, as much as I admire their work on restoring the story to match the original script, I think I preferred the tighter broadcast edits, and I will be watching that version on future rewatches with the new CGI. The greatest thing about these sets is that you get to pick and choose so much. We are so spoiled. As you can tell in this video, I love season 25. It's filled to the brim with imagination. It's got exciting action sequences, a Doctor who is mysterious again, and a companion more interesting than we've had in years. It's my favourite Sylvester season, and for good reason. So in conclusion, my final rankings are the following. At number 1, we have the Happiness Patrol. It's such a great story, and this special edition skyrockets it to first place. It's undeniable how good it is. Although this extensive reimagining might not be to everyone's taste, it is to mine. And this is my video, so only my opinion matters, okay? At second place, we have Remembrance of the Daleks. The new effects just give the whole production a polish. It doesn't get first place because some of the CGI Daleks just feel a bit too CGI, but it's still a great show. Third place is Silver Nemesis. The new edition of the Cybermats is so inventive, and the new edit really made the story make sense. But did I enjoy the story as much as others? I'd have to say no. Fourth and final is the greatest show in the galaxy. It feels cruel putting anything at the bottom of this list, since I really enjoyed all of the new special editions. But ultimately, I didn't get much enjoyment out of the extended runtime of this one, although it was well executed. And the new visual effects are great. It was a nice polish, but I'm probably more happy with the broadcast version with new visual effects. All in all, I think the team did an amazing job on this release. It instantly skyrockets to the top of my favourite collection box set releases. And I haven't even finished watching all the special features yet. I really hope future sets include more special editions like these ones. Obviously, this season only has 4 stories, making that a bit more achievable on a budget, and I don't expect to get 6 special editions on longer seasons. But if we lived in a fantasy world, that would be amazing. So, if you haven't ordered a copy of the Season 25 box set, or it's not out in your country yet, I hope you get a chance to see these edits. It's definitely worth your time and money. And for those who have seen the new special editions, what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Nez YouTube channel.